Hello, good morning, everybody. Let me invite all of you to our session on policy and innovation. My name is Dr. K.I. Laibuta. And just a brief note about me. I am the founding dean of the University of Embu Law School, but above all, a practitioner in law and a legislative counsel where we interact with policy a great deal. This morning, we are privileged to have 5 distinguished panelists to share with us their experiences in the various areas that they engage with technology and accessibility in particular. In this session, we want to focus our attention on the African perspective on digital accessibility. Where are we in the journey? How can we drive change through innovation? What have we done? What do we need to do? How far are we in our journey? Where are we going and what do we need to get there? We need all of us, and are privileged to have quite a number of sponsors and support institutions or organizations that are making a difference in this conference. We want to focus our attention on ICT policies and accessibility standards. Do we have any, or do we just move, responding and reacting to the demands of the day? Most important, ask yourself, how will your organization serve the 80 million Africans with disabilities? What have you done towards that process? Now, this is what I propose that we do. I will invite the panelists to introduce themselves. They will give us their name, current position, what their interests are in the area of digital accessibility, and what they are doing to transform the lives of persons with disabilities, and in particular with visual disabilities. And we will begin with Yuval Wagner of Access Israel. Yuval, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move on after that to Christopher Patnoe of Google. We're in good hands, by the way, and Google has really transformed lives. And then we'll go to Daniel Obam, my good brother from whom we've come from very far and are still walking the University together. Then from there, we go to Ida Jallow of ITU. And I want to believe that ITU is setting standards and goals that we all want to achieve. And finally, we will have Irene Kaggwa Sewankambo. I hope I pronounce your names well, and excuse me if I do not. So let's begin and hear a little about who Yuval Wagner is.
Thank you very much, and it's exciting to be in Inclusive First Africa conference, and good luck for all. So I'm on a wheelchair. I'm handicapped. I'm paralyzed from neck down, and I founded Access Israel in Israel to make Israel fully accessible for all disabilities in all spheres of life. And as you know, we are all approaching the digital era.
Christopher, please tell us a little about yourself, your current position, and what you're doing to drive digital accessibility.
Hello, my name is Christopher Patnoe, and I'm the head of accessibility programs and disability inclusion for this little company called Google. First, I want to thank Irene for the invitation to participate in Inclusive Africa. It feels like only yesterday we were sitting in Tel Aviv with Rama from the previous talk discussing the naming of this conference. Accessibility is part of Google's mission statement, which is to make the world's information universally accessible and useful. And we are committed to making accessibility a core consideration from the earliest stages of product design through product release. At Google, we adopt the social model of accessibility, where accessibility is viewed as a mismatch between the needs of the individual and the design of the product or society. When it's framed this way, it's clear that the disability can be experienced by anyone excluded in the design. For example, when listening to an audio-only lecture, the student who is blind is less disabled than the student who is less fluent in the language, or for the student who's been up all night, kind of like me right now. What you find when you design a product inclusively, leveraging the tools you develop, like Google and artificial intelligence, one can create solutions that meet the needs of the disabled community and the mainstream community as well. An example of this is captions in our Google Meet. Captions, as we know, were designed to meet the needs of people who are deaf and hard of hearing, and this is especially important in the time of COVID and shelter in place. But what people may not realize is also beneficial for people who speak a different language, or for people who are distracted, or for people who are sitting in a loud room or just having a hard time hearing the conversation. So an important thing we try to do at Google is to bring the disability community into the development process early and as often as makes sense. There's the expression of never about us without us. And this is how we prefer to develop for people with disabilities. Co-designing products like Lookout, which is a Google product that uses computer vision to describe text and objects in the world around you for people who are blind or low vision, it's nearly impossible to do well if you don't bring the community in and iterate with their feedback. So focusing on the needs of the specific user is critically important for all features, and that impact is particularly important for bespoke applications like Lookout. But how do we do this? The easiest way is to have people with disabilities in the workforce. So one of the most important things I think people need to think about as you develop inclusive products is to have an inclusive workforce. And by doing this, you accomplish several things. One, it'll reduce the stigma of disability as more people are exposed to people with disabilities. Two, it provides greater employment opportunities for people with disabilities. And three, this allows firms to design and release products that meet the needs of people with disabilities because they were developed in conjunction with them. So it's a win-win-win. And once you start creating products that meet everybody's needs, the company's profits will improve. So that's another win. So it's actually a win-win-win-and-win.
Yes, we'll come back to you with a few questions and we might learn a little bit more.
So good morning, good afternoon. I'm not sure where everybody is. So I'm Irene Kaggwa, Sewankambo. I'm the Acting Executive Director of Uganda Communications Commission. Firstly, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting us to be a part of this. I was really honored to reach out to us to be a part of this. Now, the question that was put to me was, what are we doing about digital inclusion in respect of persons with disabilities? As a country, we have our National Vision 2040, whose goal is to have a transformed Ugandan society from peasant to a modern prosperous country. And in this, the government is committed to leaving nobody behind, irrespective of their gender, their age, and their physical abilities. As one of the previous panelists mentioned, we should not focus on their disabilities, but rather focus on their abilities. As a sector, we have also developed what is being called the Digital Uganda Vision. That's in there also deliberately ensures that we address the connectivity needs of persons with disabilities. As a country, to frame our interventions, we have the Persons with Disabilities Act, which was enacted in 2006. And this actually specifically requires, for example, the television stations to provide sign language, but from the side of telecoms, it provides that the telephone company should provide special telephone devices for hearing impaired people. Now, we all know that ICTs have moved on from being just telephone, as some of the other panelists were attempting to share their experiences. So we have needed to look at a bigger scope in terms of the different ICTs that are there. We developed regulations that allow the Uganda Communications Commission to provide operating guidelines to operators and other persons on subjects such as access requirements for persons with disabilities. And in this same vein, we have included within the licenses of operators obligations specific to providing services to persons with disabilities. However, we recognize that it cannot be only the operators to provide this. We need to do more. The same way we look at the challenges of inclusion of other persons, we need to look at what are the challenges of persons with disabilities. So one of the issues we identified was skilling. And under our Rural Communication Development Program, we partnered with the National Union of Women with Disabilities of Uganda. And in this, we provided training, digital skilling for women, at least 25,000 women who have different disabilities, and also give them customized digital skilling training. And accordingly, we also give them a smartphone upon completion. In addition, we've also done regional sensitization workshops on persons with special needs, addressing the different parties, including the leaders and other interested stakeholders, to help them appreciate the importance of inclusive design in terms of addressing the communication needs of all persons. Under the Rural Communications Development Fund, we've also, the same way we are considering secondary schools and providing them ICT school labs, we also had a targeted intervention for schools with persons with disabilities, where we provide them special ICT devices that are customized to their needs. These, for example, have text-to-speech software, magnifier software, Plextalk, and other facilities. We have one one school that we really have had significant success in this week, and are now rolling it out across the country to other schools that address persons with disabilities. So as a country, we have decided to make sure we do not just talk about leaving no one behind as a jargon, but actually make deliberate efforts and interventions and provisions within our regulatory and policy frameworks to ensure that this is actually realized. So thank you very much.
Christopher, it seems that it's only you and me. So
we can do a dance routine.
Maybe we should just talk us in the meantime for the audience. From my perspective in Israel, the main thing or the basics of promoting digital accessibility is start at awareness. And I'm sure that you guys will agree with me. But awareness is not enough, because after we have awareness, if we don't have legislation that enforces that every new technology, every software, every website will be accessible.
Policy advocacy group. So we put together this team. Then we formed different technical working groups to look at different themes: infrastructure, accessibility, accessibility in the broader sense of access to broadband, and accessibility as a topic of today's discussion. So the technical working groups worked together, and then we came up with a draft. That draft then was published on the ministry's website. It was
Ida,
can you hear me now? Yuval?
So some of the aspects that you see in the policy dealing with accessibility actually came from the stakeholder engagement. So, and especially the Communication Authority, working with the ITU, was able to add a lot of material in that. So after we did the policy and stakeholder engagement, we then take the comments and use it to revise the draft document. Then after that, we had what we call a validation workshop, where we invited the public again, those who contributed plus anyone else who had to register. And we had a meeting of about 300 people, and we went through the document, which had the stakeholder inputs. I remember that time we got even the Minister of ICT from Rwanda joined us, and the former Secretary General of the ITU, Honorable Madoun Toure, who was then running the Smart Africa Alliance. So it was a big, conference. So after that, we revised the document again from the validation workshop. We prepared a cabinet memorandum, sent to the minister. He sent to his colleagues, they discussed it, and then it was passed last year. And then this year it was gazetted as an official document of the government of Kenya. Now,
Right.
very good sounding intentions in the policy. So what next? Our view is that there are several regulatory bodies that drive the ICT sector, from broadcasting to content creation, to the Communication Authority, who is the regulator for the ICT sector, to the ICT Authority, which develops government websites. Because one of the things in the policy realized that we were saying government websites should be accessible. So the next stage, I think, is stakeholders, together with these government bodies and even with the lead of the ministry, to ensure that the intentions in the policy are actually actualized through practical implementation. For example, development of standards. Enable, as an example, could work with the Communication Authority to develop standards that then can be issued so that players in the sector, mobile operators, infrastructure providers, can actually incorporate these standards when they are designing their products and services. This is how we see it, but again...
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Laibuta, we can hear you now. The last one to talk is Ida. So
Yes.
please present Ida and let her talk.
Okay, Ida, please tell us a little about yourself, and then we'll quickly get to just a few questions on matters of standards.
Okay. My name is Ida Jallow, and I'm a lawyer by profession. I work for the ITU in the ITU Regional Office for Africa, which is in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I'm very glad to hear my last colleague talking about the passing of the policy in Kenya, because at ITU, what we've done is to approach the region on a regional basis. So as far back as 2016, we have engaged with the East Africa community to walk them through the policy, give them technical assistance for them to develop a policy for the region and put it through their approval processes so that every country in East Africa would now domesticate this policy at national level. And that would give them a framework within which to monitor themselves in terms of how they are doing. And this is the same approach we've also adopted with the ECOWAS region, West Africa. We've done the same thing with ECOWAS in 2018. And now a draft policy is with the ECOWAS body to actually formally adopt it, so that all the 15 member states in ECOWAS would also have to replicate the policy at national level. So I'm very encouraged when I hear that Kenya has actually gone through that. But apart from just building the policy, yes, Yuval. Yes, Yuval.
No, I didn't say
just go on, Ida. Just go on.
So apart from just helping African countries to get the policy right, we have also developed a toolkit at the ITU. So countries can take this toolkit and actually do a self-assessment to be able to know where they are on the map when it comes to accessibility. And we look at accessibility from the point of view of mobile, web accessibility, but also importantly, government procurement. If you look at the statistics now, there is 1 billion people who are living with disabilities on the planet. And out of those billion people, 80% live in the developing countries. So that makes you understand why this is so important for Africa, because we are in the developing world. So this is a key issue for us, and we need to take all the opportunities that we have at our disposal to make sure that we're inclusive as possible, so that all people that are living with disabilities will be able to be participating in the mainstream of activities everywhere on all the African continent.
Yeah.
I could
Thank you,
go on.
Aida.
Thank you.
Yes, all you probably could tell us is from ITU's perspective, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you gauge Africa's inclusivity in matters of digital accessibility? Where do we stand?
I think we have a long way to go, and my grading is going to be very, very low on that scale of 1 to 10. Maybe if I'm really generous, I'll put it out at 2. So there is really a lot of work to be done, because I think the normative framework is already there from the UN disability strategy, from the ITU guidelines that we've developed, from the policy and from the toolkit, but we still need to see a lot of implementation, actual work within the African countries. So I'm sorry that my grading is going to be 2, and I think that is generous.
And we
Mr.
can't blame you
Labuta,
for that.
Mr. Labuta,
Yuval, yes,
I just want to say
Yuval, I did
something.
not hear you, but I would like to ask you just one question. What has Israel done?
Yeah, okay, but I just want to say to all you African countries that actually it's a great it's a great in Africa you have a great opportunity to learn and adopt regulations and laws and practices that are already tried out in many countries. So you don't have to go over and make all the mistakes that already have happened. So
Yeah,
actually, you can implement accessibility in a much faster way, and that's what Israel has done. Israel
yeah,
have adopted the international laws, regulations, and standards, but in the law, we have put something very unique that we said that every technology have to be accessible, every website, but also we have enforcement in the laws. So it's not your decision if you do it or not. You just
yeah.
have to, because now if you don't, you have a lawsuit. This is a
I
way to progress fastly. So
I
I
absolutely.
really
Mm,
recommend
mhm.
don't invent anything new. It's all
Yeah,
out there. Use the
yeah,
global companies, use the global standards, and just
yeah,
implement it.
yeah. I absolutely agree with you,
Great,
Yuval.
great. Thank you.
I agree. I agree with you. And this is why ITU has been, very, very focused on the fact that all African countries have the policy in place. Because once you have the policy, then the natural progression is you're going to move to passing a legislation. And once you pass a legislation, then your a citizen at national level would have a framework to which they monitor what you're doing, they identify the gaps, and they can take you to task about where the gaps are and what you're doing to actually fill them. So you're absolutely right. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of accessibility features, there are a lot of standards, and we can learn a lot from developed countries who've done quite a bit of work on this area. You're right. Over to you.
Christopher,
Please.
please, if you could just tell us how businesses are responding to what Google is doing, and what could organizations in Africa do to catch up with the rest of the world on issues of digital accessibility?
I think we're in a situation where the technology is advancing fast enough and the platforms are broad enough that the changes that we bring out, like captions, like screen reader support, it's easy for people to pick up and take advantage of them. And what's neat to see on the business level is you have the Microsofts, the Googles, the Apples, we're competing with each other, really pushing, and we're competing with each other in the accessibility space. It's a friendly competition because we realize we're all helping the same users. But we have this situation where companies are competing against themselves, creating opportunities and platforms. What I would recommend that people in Africa do is take a look at these platforms so you don't have to build everything from scratch. Take a look at the tools that exist and identify a specific use case, identify a user that you want to help, work with that user, work with this technology, and make sure you create a solution that meets everyone's needs. But the important thing is you don't need to do it from scratch.
I also
Now,
believe, Christopher, that
yes,
today the global companies are open for approaches from countries and, in cooperation with companies, making their products more accessible in those specific countries.
great. What worries me, though, is the cost of technology, because when you look at those who use accessibility tools, either as voiceovers or screen readers, will certainly tell you that a screen reader may cost double the cost of a laptop. That
But
a person with
depending,
visual abilities does not need to spend money on. So what are we doing? What can we do to bring these costs down?
well, there are opens. If you look at the Android devices, the Android devices tend to be less expensive than iOS devices, and both iOS and Android have screen readers for free as part of the platform. Apple has a free screen reader as part of their Mac platform. Google's Chromebook is a free screen reader as part of its platform. So you're seeing
Right,
more
right.
companies create these assistive technologies and give it away as part of the platform, so it doesn't have to cost more money. There's open source versions like NVDA that you can take advantage of. So there are ways to make a cost sensitive screen reader and assistive technologies.
Good, great information.
What we have
Yes,
what we've discovered at the level of ITU is that with everything that Christopher is saying, which is indeed true, there's not a lot of awareness for the citizens. So with even these embedded accessibility features, people don't know about them. So one of the things that we've been doing is to organize events and meetings where we bring people together and we bring the experts on these technologies and the embedded features and actually use them in the room and have people experience them and practice them again and again and ask as many questions as possible. And I think that is helping to raise awareness on the features that we already have.
I would
Thank
like
you.
to
thank you.
add, I would like to add 1 second to the awareness. It's also
Yes,
training, because the technologies are going so fast and so developing so fast. It's very important all the time to do training and training and training, because if not, you're just not up to date, and it's another level after awareness.
thank you,
So
thank you, thank you, sir. Now, time is not on our side. We'll very quickly wind up by hearing Yuval's last word of advice on the way forward. Yuval?
aim high, aim high, adapt, awareness training. Don't invent anything, just copy and paste. And I'm sure that the gaps will be narrowed very, very rapidly.
Thank you,
Good luck,
Yuval.
Africa.
Thank you. Christopher, your last word for us?
There is a lot of opportunity as long as you listen to the people you're working with. There's tools that exist if you know where to look. Ask questions, bring people together, and we can solve these problems together.
Thank you. Dan, your last word, if you are still with us, please.
Dan is not here.
So
Dan is not
I
here. Yes,
oh,
Ida.
I thought you said either. So what I was going to say was that African countries, we need to do more. We need to do more for our people living with disabilities, and getting the legal framework is key. But we also need to be more hands-on in the things that we are doing, and the ITU is here to offer technical assistance and assist you in whatever ways. And like Christopher has said, there's a lot of tools out there already in existence that you can put to your benefit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aida. Thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity to thank all of you. I think we didn't have Irene today, but I sincerely do thank all of you, and my apologies for the hitches that we've had on technology, being thrown in and out of the rooms. Thank you very much. Let's give it back to the Master of Ceremonies and see how the rest of the program goes. Thank you very, very, very much to you all. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, son.